You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national financial columnist and financial color commentator. This week on The Biz, our personal performance series. And on today's show, using the 5 C's of psychology with sports psychologist and performance coach, Dr. Jack Singer.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me, day 4, sitting on the couch with Dr. Jack Singer. Hey,
nice
Jack.
to see you, Ken.
Well, we're talking about all that is personal performance because really, bottom line, these things that we can modify could really help us hit some of our life goals and really bring tranquility on the domestic front.
That's the key.
Yeah.
The key is there are many things that people can do and have learned to do to increase sales performance. But if you're not balanced with tranquility, you're not going to be a good human being, and you're not going to be a happy or healthy human being.
Well, I love your first one, and it's almost like I want to, this just shows the psychological part of my personality here. It says his first one of his 5 C's, Dr. Jack, has challenge. Right. And I'm like, put the sword on.
Right. Well, you know, what happens here, Steve, is people need to look at obstacles as challenges instead of getting overwhelmed by obstacles. It's like, you know, if you're trying to get from point A to point B and there's a detour, and the detour to you becomes like a mountain and you get irritated, instead of focusing on the fact that it's simply a challenge, I'll figure my way around it and I will get to point B, that's what they need to do. So instead of getting overwhelmed by obstacles, simply remain optimistic and look at any obstacle as a challenge. Well,
in our business, I'm looking at the biggest obstacle I hear, and I've heard it for 30 years, is getting new clients. Everybody said, where am I going to get the next client from? I've already done everything I can do with my existing base. I've even trolled that for referrals. Where am I going to get my new one? That challenge is the #1 challenge in our business.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of producers as well. But then you talk to the producers who really continue to farm new clients and new referrals. How do they do that? So it's important to find out what they're doing that you're not doing. And actually, part of the answer to that will come in our 5th segment tomorrow.
You know, social engagement is a lot of issues that we have, and some of our producers are totally into it. But when we talk about change, you know, we have challenges, we have obstacles to overcome in our practice, and we just named the biggest one, I think, in producer land. But change, talk about our change. What's the opportunity here to change? Because I think people say change is, oh, this is going to be a headache.
Right. Right. They're thinking of the paperwork, they're thinking of compliance, they're thinking of, you know, fiduciary responsibilities and the pain in the neck part of what change introduces. But let's look at it this way. If you're going to be able to help your clients in a more safety and secure way, isn't that a good thing in the long run? And you can use that information in order to talk to your clients about products. That now we have even more fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we don't make a mistake with you and what your needs are and so forth. So all of these things are very good for us and will give the client a sense of security. So, you know, I like to talk to people about keeping their sights focused beyond the horizon of the mundane, you know, that so many people, well, I just do what I have to do and I'll be okay with that. But let's look at beyond the horizon of the mundane and see what you can do with change that'll actually bring you to another level.
Now, when we talk about changing and coming out of maybe an environment of the mundane, we don't have, it doesn't make a big leap. Let me make a few steps out of that.
Exactly.
How do I do that? How do I do that?
Exactly. You simply say, you know, I don't have to do everything I've been doing every day to be successful. Is there something I can let go of and retool myself? Let go of something that I used to do all the time that I don't have to do now because it's detracting from my performance.
I mentioned this off air with Dr. Jack, but as many of you know, I used to do comic strips for Brokers World, and I love doing those things, but they really didn't bring that much revenue, and it took a lot of time and creativity. And one day, out of probably compassion for my soul, my boss came to me and said, I think it's time to let your child go. And I've never been happier for it. And I found out many times I have to be able to say, these things are really not productive.
Right.
And it's time to just let them
Right.
go.
And you have to do that, and you have to teach that to your children as well, that they don't have to continue to do the same thing that gets them overwhelmed. You know, I've had a lot of clients over the years who are elite athletes so that the athletic part of their life, you know, kids, you know, really gets in the way of their social life. And so many times they have no social life, and they're staying up till 2 in the morning trying to do their homework because they were busy at practice all day and came home exhausted, and by the time they got through their homework it was late. Well, I talked to the parents about making some change. We have to let go of something. You can't keep doing the same thing you've always been doing without expecting the same results, which is physical exhaustion, lack of sleep, which causes all kinds of other problems. So you have to let go of something, and maybe for some athletes, being in their sport is not the answer for them any longer. So we have to be willing to let go of things because there may be something richer in the future.
Well, I love the possibility of something could be richer in the future.
Right.
I mean, that sounds very uplifting.
Yeah.
Well, what about commitment though? Because everybody's into commitment on whatever level they define.
Right.
And commitment, you're committed to your marriage, you're committed to your job, you're committed to being fair and honest and truthful. Commitment, when you talk about the 5 C's, and this is your middle ground commitment, and it's a big piece.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, this has to do with goals. The best way to stay committed is to stay committed to your goals, and regardless of the obstacles that get in the way or the unfortunate experiences or the disappointments, or you might even conclude the failures, but it's the journey to the goal that determines the outcome, not the outcome per se. So when people can stay focused on what they need to do to stay committed to that goal, regardless of the slings and arrows that may get in the way, then they're very successful. It's the ones who get overwhelmed by the things that happen in the way that just stop looking at the goal.
Well, I like short-term goals because I kind of after watching What About Bob, the movie, I loved his little baby steps.
Right.
Nice, conquerable, let's try that. And I still have maybe 5-year goals outside that I can get and try to knock those out and easy to understand. I don't know, maybe you're a multitasker like I am. I like to knock those kind of things out. Listen, we're going to continue to talk about the 5 C's of psychology, part of our personal performance series. And don't forget, you can hop out and enroll in IULUniversity.com for the best training, education, and sales support when it comes to life insurance for retirement income.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Did you know the average 401k runs out of money just 7 to 8 years into retirement? Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and many other publications have warned of the difficulty of saving with a 401k. But what if there was a way to create tax-free lifetime retirement income with no stock market risk? Good news, there is.
Living in fear of the next market dive is not the way I want to live my life.
Why would I go out there and take on risk when I don't need to?
I have a lot less stress knowing I can't lose any more of my retirement savings in the stock market.
Call now to receive your free, no-obligation analysis of what this retirement vehicle could do for you, a comparison to your current retirement plan, and a free video that explains this exciting opportunity. Start planning a retirement you can enjoy instead of worrying about future tax increases and stock market losses. Creating income that will last your entire life is the most important thing you'll ever do. Take control of your future. Call now for your free analysis, comparison, and video.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant with Dr. Jack Singer, and we're talking about all that is the psychology of the 5 C's. And remember, you can hop out and pull down some of our chart toppers that other producers are pulling down off our website, The Biz. thebiz.tv. And when you go out to that site, you'll see all the exciting things that we're giving away. There's a ton out there, and I think you really appreciate it. Some of the top ones that are brilliant, that Social Security is still running. We did a couple shows back and with Ken Davis, and that's a hot show, so you want to see that. And remember, anytime you're talking about taxation or anything else, always consult your tax advisor, and if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance officer. We're talking about the 5 C's. We've talked about challenge. We've talked about change. And we're right in the middle of kind of talking about commitment. We're almost done with that. Short-term goals, we tell our clients to do this. Hey, listen, the carpenter's house, his roof leaks. The shoe salesman's children go without shoes. And we have no goals and plans, and we're the financial advisors.
Right.
That's just counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like you don't practice what you preach.
Right.
And that what you're doing for other people is the most important, and you can deal with your issues later. But no. People need to deal with these 5 C's of psychological health, because if you do that, then you'll always be okay. You don't have to be perfect. No one ever is. Struggling for perfection is an exercise in futility. You just have to do the best you can, and if you can maintain these 5 C's, then you'll be able to be the best you can.
Well, let's talk about the number 4, because when we talk about control, we talked about this earlier in the week about type A, they're into control. I understand that because I am the disease. But when I'm looking at control, controlling negative thoughts that can really be counterproductive, and to try to get your mind, I guess we're so programmed, I guess when I come down to this, we're so programmed, I need to now have a completely different program inserted into my thinking, and so that my tributaries, my thinking is totally different.
Right. And you know, this has been a revolution in psychotherapy, actually, that's only been around for about 25 years. It used to be that people who developed psychotherapeutic techniques thought that everything that happens in your childhood causes what happens to you as an adult, and if you haven't worked through some things in your childhood, then we have to go back and rediscover that. We now know that that's not the case, that everything that happens to you as an adult in terms of your emotions, your moods, your attitudes, your behaviors are all based on what your thinking is at any moment when something happens to you. So if you can understand where your thinking has gone awry, where perhaps your thinking is distorted or it's not healthy, then you can change that thinking, and that's where this whole business of learning to change really takes place, and you can really change your attitudes, your behaviors, and your moods.
Well, number 5 to me is a big one, because creativity, we really don't have the kind of free brainstorming we used to have. I remember when I came into this business, we used to go to these lockdown sessions where we would just bring all these ideas. Nothing was sacrosanct. Everything was put on the table. Right. Nobody cared. We want to hear all this. But creativity, most of our producers are built on, they know they're academic. They know the strategic planning issues all down. They know the economy. They read the news, are very, very up to stuff. But creative, whether they can promote themselves in a creative way, whether they're on the internet in a creative way, whether they're marketing in that creative way of even expressing things to a client in a different and much more easy to understand.
Yeah, and for most people, they think that changing their creativity or adding creativity is taking a risk, but you have to remember that risk has its rewards. The fruits on a tree are out in the limbs, so you have to go out on a limb to get the fruits, the rewards of your thinking. So people need to take chances that make sense, and by taking a chance, I'm talking about doing something a little differently and seeing what happens. Now we've had in the last several years mastermind groups that a lot of people belong to, where people can sit around and creatively pick other people's brains who come with other areas of expertise, find out how they've been successful even if it's not in the same field as the producer. And I think all of these things are good because it challenges you to expand yourself. We know that people can be much more creative than they allow themselves to be if they would just do that. We learned many years ago, for example, that you could take preschool children and you could actually put them in a program to learn algebra, and they would actually learn it. We never knew before that was possible. And that's just one of many examples of how we can expand the brain. We now think that we only use maybe 10% of our potential in our brains. You can expand it. So allowing yourself to do creative things is very important. And there are little brain teasers you can do to keep that going, especially when you get older and so forth. But I like to use something I call the if-then approach. Is have a sheet of paper that says if with several lines and then. So if I run into this situation, then here's what I'm going to do. So if it's a producer, if they ask this kind of a question, then here's how I'm going to respond. If you plan on these things in advance, it'll be much easier for you. You'll feel much more comfortable. To take it out of that whole vein, but to give you a simple example, if someone wants to lose weight, then one of the things to do on the if-then protocol is, if I'm shopping in a supermarket and I'm hungry, I'm going to leave and come back when I'm not hungry, because I have more of a tendency to buy fast foods that I shouldn't need when I'm hungry. Or if I'm shopping in a supermarket and I'm walking down the chip aisle and I realize that this is not in my best interest, then I will immediately say, aha, I have control over this. I'm going over to the fruit aisle. So an if-then approach helps with your creative thinking.
Well, I love the one part you said about basically giving yourself permission to be creative.
Right.
I think people say, well, that's for a few people. They're creative. They're very, unique and distinctive the way they market, but they don't see that they have creativity in themselves.
Absolutely.
Well, when I think about this, these are some of the things we're talking about to really change our person, because that's the person behind our practice, behind our business. And if we can come to these places, I'd love the 5 C's: challenge, change, commitment, control, and my fave, creativity. all these things can be working in the 5 C's, and I love if and then. Wow. We come back, you're going to be able to see tomorrow's show. We're going to summarize everything we've been talking about. You can watch this show and all our shows on the on-demand video section right on our homepage at brokersalliance.com. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. Get in the zone. The business
You're listening
insurance
to the
zone.
insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.